TV presenter Philip Schofield's spoken publicly for the first time since stepping back from ITV's This Morning. He's admitted lying to people about an affair with a younger male colleague. Hunched and contrite in these interviews, The Sun's Clemmy Moody had an exclusive with Schofield and asked him if he groomed the show's runner.
I did not. I mean, there are accusations of all sorts of things.
Yeah.
I know, I absolutely know. There is no question I did a bad thing. Unprofessional. First time. I know I did that.
Yeah.
And there's no excuse. I don't have an excuse. I won't put forward an excuse.
This story has been on the front pages for a week now. We've spoken about Boris Johnson trying to control the narrative over those WhatsApps. Philip Schofield seems to be doing the same, or trying to do the same, after taking an absolute battering in the press. His message is, I didn't do anything really wrong, and I'm sorry.
My biggest regret is getting into a relationship at work.
To whom do you owe your biggest apology?
Everybody. To every single person, I am deeply sorry. And I apologise to him because I should have known better.
Philip Schofield speaking to The Sun. The story is again all over today's papers. And joining me to go through those papers is Jason Reed, political campaigner with Young Voices UK. Morning, Jason.
Good morning.
We'll get to Philip Schofield in just a second. First of all, you're a young man. Would you vote for President Biden? Would you vote for a Prime Minister in the UK who falls over a lot? Is that an issue?
I don't think it's too much of an issue as people might make it out to be. I think it's pretty impressive that President Biden does everything he does at the age of 80. I mean, a presidential campaign that he's got coming up alone, jetting off, all over the place at all hours of the day for several months and giving all those campaign rallies. I'm 22 years old. I'm not sure I could manage that, to be honest. So I think it's very impressive that he does that at 80, in addition, of course, to holding the office of president. And look, we all trip over sometimes, don't we? But people are going to make more of this than it actually deserves. I think it's natural to compare it to politicians in our own country. Rishi Sunak is just 43 years old, so more or less half of President Biden's age. President Trump, ex-President Trump, who, of course, wants to be president again, is already in his late 70s as well, whereas most heads of government across Europe tend to be quite a lot younger than that. That's just a feature of the way that we do our politics. We're used to now having slightly older presidents in the US, and I don't think it's going to stop him running for president again. And if he wins, I don't think it'll stop him serving for 4 years and doing everything he wants to do in that time. No,
fair enough, Jason. The front page of the Times has got three pictures. They've shown the fall and Biden being helped up by security guards in instalments. The headline they've got is Slippy Joe, Biden falls at ceremony. This is obviously a play on words from Donald Trump's nickname for Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe. Are we just falling into Trump's trap?
There's a PhD in it for someone one day on all the cultural impact of Trump's nicknames for all his political rivals. But I don't think it's a case of falling into Trump's trap. It's natural to want to scrutinize the leaders you're electing, especially when you have an American-style system with a presidential election where you're electing an individual rather than electing local representatives and a party like we do in this country, where you might feel a bit safer, even if you're not too confident in the individual leader, because that leader can change while in office, as we've seen. We've had 3 different prime ministers since the last election. In the US, there isn't really that luxury so much. There'll be a lot of attention, of course, on who Joe Biden picks as his vice presidential candidate, whether he goes again with Kamala Harris and what her policies will be, just in case something does happen and she has to take the reins. But nonetheless, this isn't going to stop him. He clearly wants to stay on. He clearly feels he has more to do, and his age he's not going to let it be an obstacle.
Yeah, and history would suggest, he may well be likely to win again. He'd be 86 by the time he gets out. Okay, so coming back to Philip Schofield, the front page of The Sun, I'm broken and ashamed, but not a groomer, he says, after talking about why he had to step back from This Morning. He's done a couple of TV interviews. He's obviously, his basic message is, I didn't do anything criminal and I'm really sorry. Do we believe him?
this story just threatens to continue to run and run. Philip Schofield is desperate to control the narrative, but I think it got away from him a long time ago, to be honest. He's in this difficult situation where he's having to thread the line between apologizing wholeheartedly, but also denying all these accusations that he feels are unjust. And when it comes to this particular accusation of grooming, people can make up their own minds about whether that's fair to level at him. But there's a lot that is, for want of a better word, icky that we know already about the story, about the friendship that he had with this young man, and later a relationship when, at the very least, he was married, of course, at the time. And there was a very clear power dynamic going on with Philip Schofield, and the huge age difference and the very prominent public profile that he had. He is very, very keen to deny some of the more serious accusations. I think this is becoming more about the cover-up now. It's becoming more about who knew what and when. There's a lot of discussion about whether ITV should have done more earlier on, whether there should have been a more thorough investigation. Of course, they say that both parties in this relationship denied it at the time, that they found no evidence at the time. A lot of people saying, I think fair enough, saying that they should have done more, that they should have worked a bit harder to uncover what was going on here and enforce their duty of care for everyone in that workplace. Of course, we've had other accusations of a toxic workplace of various kinds as well. It's not looking good. Holly Willoughby is being dragged into it now. I don't think anybody is coming out of this story well.
Yeah, I mean, this threatens to impact her career as well. I mean, as you say, this story is not going anywhere, and I expect to see it on the front pages of the newspapers for a few more days. Jason, I'd like to touch on this horrible tragedy we saw on Bournemouth Beach yesterday. The front page of the Daily Telegraph, they've got a big picture of the pier there, a helicopter rescue, and the headline, "Boat at Centre of Beach Tragedy." There was a lot of confusion yesterday. We know a 17-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl lost their lives. And over exactly how. There's a man been arrested. What's the latest? What do we know now?
There's still a lot we don't know about this case, but as you say, there's a man has been arrested. There is a boat called the Dorset Belle, which is under cordon, and the police are keeping that as part of their investigation. Nobody's allowed to go onto it or touch it. They believe it might have contributed in some way to this awful incident. It's worth saying that the police are insisting they don't think there was any physical contact between this boat or any other boat and the swimmers in the sea. They think that it was much more to do with tides and riptides in the water that may have caught the children and swept them out to a point where they weren't able to get back. There's still a lot of questions to be answered here, and I expect we'll find out over the next few days a few more details of exactly what happened. But it's an incredibly alarming and upsetting story. I grew up very near the area. I went to Bournemouth Pier countless times during my teenage years. It's very close to home, this one.
Yeah, also, I mean, I know the beach well. I'm a Hampshire boy, so visited Bournemouth Beach many, many times. We'll keep an eye on this. Actually, it's obviously a warning for us all as we come into summer, the hot weather, and we all want to get in the water and cool off. On Breakfast, Times Radio Breakfast this morning, Callum and Rosie will have Alexander Smith from the Bournemouth Echo. He's coming on at 6:35 to give us an update. Jason, on the front page of The Guardian, obviously they've got skin in the game here, but they've got a massive picture of Bruno Pereira and Dom Phillips. Dom Phillips is the journalist who was killed in the Amazon, and Bruno Pereira, his Indigenous expert guide, reporting on the destruction of that jungle and what's going on there. The Amazon is the lungs of the world. We should be concerned, shouldn't we?
It's an incredibly difficult to manage situation in the Amazon. We certainly should be concerned. Rainforests like this provide a huge service in a natural sense for all of us, and deforestation is becoming a growing concern. People are more aware than ever before, according to polling, of the environmental impact of everything that they're doing and the products that they're buying in shops and the effect that might have on the natural world all around the world. And of course, there's the issue in the Amazon, as has become clear recently, of crime, of organized crime in the region, people talking about mafia operating in the region and drugs gangs and so on. It's an incredibly difficult situation to manage. I don't envy the police who have to deal with this situation, trying to enforce the law against what appear to be organized crime gangs in the context of a rainforest. Perhaps the change of government in Brazil after the recent election might have a positive impact, but it's yet to see whether that will materialise. It's going to be a tricky one to contain, that's for sure.
Let's hope so. I have to declare an interest here. I did used to live in Brazil, and it's such a vast country, not policed enough, and parts of it do really seem like the Wild West. Just finally, Jason, just thought I would have to touch on this. The front page of the Daily Star, they're concerned about Britain's chip shops. Do you eat fish and chips?
I do, and I'm very alarmed to see that the Daily Star reporting that so many fish and chip shops are on the brink of closure. I suppose it's not too much of a surprise given the economic context that we have at the moment, with the cost of everything for these businesses going up, from ingredients to energy bills and so on, and perhaps inflation and the cost of living pushing more people to cut down on luxuries like a fish and chip dinner.
Yeah, I'm certainly eating out a lot less at the moment. Front page of the Star, they got a picture of Lord Kitchener. They're putting it as a kind of a campaign. Your chippy needs you. So they're saying go twice, 2 more visits this year, and that might save them. Is this just a question of we got more choice and fewer people are choosing fish and chips?
Quite possibly more choice, economic pressures, all these things feed into it. We're seeing similar things with pubs closing. Of course, it's very sad to see, but I'm very much a supporter of this Daily Star campaign, especially because, as the Star puts it, all you have to do to support it is scoff more takeaways. I'm very much on board with that. I think we can all get on board with that when it's for the good of the nation and the economy and the good of our fish and chip shops.
Fantastic. Well, Jason, maybe see you on the beach this summer for some fish and chips. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you.